With Dave Jose. I want to welcome you to the show. We will have, hopefully, a special guest coming on today. Please forgive me, I forgot to put on my headphones. We'll have a special guest named Philip Lee, who is going to be coming on with us. I want to thank everybody for coming on and for watching tonight. It should be a blessed night of discussion. Hopefully, we can have him come on and go live with us. It's always a blessing when men can come together, men or women, and have blessed and beautiful discussions about those things which are law. When we are coming together and we can have a conversation and see each other's faces and realize what's real and what's fake and just talk about adult subjects, we end up having what's called real growth. You guys know that I am a non-attorney. I am not, I don't practice law. I'm not licensed in any state. I am one of the people. I'm going to check and see if the video is coming up. Let's see. I may have to ask Denise to come live to be able to read some for me if we need to read. But it should be a good day. Are you live, Denise? Denise, are you live? Okay. Let me know if you guys can see this video on Rumble. We are trying to get everything up. We know Rumble lags sometimes, usually.
En masse for Democrats. That's just an example.
Uh-oh. Oh. Usually everything lags a little bit with Rumble. We're usually at least 10 seconds behind on Rumble. So let me know if you can see this on Rumble. We're going to try to make sure that we are up. So far, I can't see us, so... Okay, can see and hear. Okay, Charity just let me know that everyone can see and hear. Everybody, please share this on all your platforms. Puppy Mama 12, I want to thank you so much for the blessing. We are once again going to have a gentleman named Phil Lee, an attorney, I believe, for over 15 years. He could tell us when he comes on. We are going to have a discussion about law. And I think it'll be a blessed conversation for everybody to see and to understand from a person who is not a lawyer and from a person who is a lawyer. So everybody please share, because I can't share the way that I want to and be able to see everyone. But I think the gentleman is on. Let me see if I can get him on here. Oops. Okay. Let me know if you guys can see and hear us. Phil, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How are you?
Good.
How are you?
I'm good.
All right. Your name is Philip Lee, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And do you want to tell us a little bit about how long you've been a lawyer, where you went to school, all that good stuff, just so that people can have a knowledge of who they're listening to?
Yeah, so I graduated law school like 2004, so it's been a while. I've never practiced. I'm inactive. So I just, maybe around two years ago when this whole COVID nonsense happened, I started looking into PMAs because I was looking for ways to get around government regulations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I found that a lot of PMA sellers were interpreting Supreme Court cases incorrectly. So I pretty much spent about a year and a half just reading Supreme Court cases. And I think I have a pretty good understanding now of the constitutional law and our right to associate and everything. And that's pretty much what I want to talk about here today.
Gotcha. Well, so for me, I understand that you possibly have an issue of what I believe or say is the truth about private associations. But I do understand that there's a lot of people who are going to be watching this show who don't have any idea about law. They don't understand the first principles. So if we start right at private associations, they won't have any background to what is what. I know yesterday, I believe it was yesterday or the day before yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we got into a discussion about jurisdiction and what it means and the such. Jurisdiction and these different words, these different issues are going to have a lot to do with where the government has authority and where they don't have authority. Now, I heard you say that the lockdowns are some bull. So I would ask you, so do you not think the lockdowns were legitimate based on the law, or do you think that the government was within its authority to lock people down?
I think some of these mandates or rules or whatever you want to call them that the governments are pushing, I think they're unconstitutional. I think they're definitely wrong.
What would make you say that?
Well, we have our rights to pursue life, liberty, happiness, right? So
gotcha. Now, where would you say that is secured? Like, where can the people who are watching the show find that they have the right to pursue their own happiness, liberty, freedom, and those things? Where would you say that they could find that?
What do you mean by where?
Like where written. So like if they wanted to stand, because you're a lawyer, are you a constitutional attorney, or what kind of attorney were you, if I may ask?
I never practiced. I studied tax law, but never practiced. So I've always been inactive. Okay. I passed the bar, and then I just never practiced.
Gotcha. So based on the stuff that you were taught in school, and if I'm correct, it was Loyola, right? University? Or am I wrong? Okay. So at a high level school, what was it that they taught you that would make you say that the mandates were unconstitutional?
Nothing that they taught me. It's just what I've been reading. I've been reading the Bill of Rights. I've been reading Supreme Court case law, and it has to do with bodily autonomy. A lot of it, we have the right to do what we want with our body. We have a right to control or stay what people inject into our bodies.
So let me ask you. I'm sorry, because you got me. It's starting to get deep now because you said a couple of things, and I'm really kind of digging in, because this is how everybody learns, right? The maxims tell us if you question well, he who questions well learns well. So you said two words. So one thing you said was you said bodily autonomy, and then the first one you said was case law. So I hear that term a lot. But I want to ask you what it means, just so I know for sure, because a lot of people as attorneys say different things, and I hear terms, but I want to make sure I understand for sure. So when you say you studied the Supreme Court case law, what do you mean when you say that?
Case law is just common law.
Case law is common law. So now where were you taught that in school, or were you taught that, did you read that somewhere else?
I don't remember if they taught that in school, but it's just common knowledge, I thought.
Well, here's the thing. This is the thing that's hard for me. And I believe if we have a respectful conversation, just looking at facts, we're going to find out that the discrepancies between attorneys and the people are issues that can be seen very clearly when we go back and look, that have not been taught in the best way. So, for instance, for me, I create PMAs. So in creation of PMAs, I understand just like America is a political association, right? Voluntary political association. All the states are voluntary political associations, and we're usually not taught that. But when you understand that there's a voluntary political association, then you come into a point where you find that all powers that are in the states have to be granted inside of the trust indenture called the state constitution. So, or the federal. So if there's going to be a power, it has to be granted. But when I look at all 51 constitutions, I've never seen the judiciary given any power to make anything that would be called law. It was always the legislature or the people reserving the power. So the people reserve power in many trust indentures to write law, and they granted authority to the legislature to make law. But I believe when attorneys started to get taught a little wrong, and this is my belief and I can prove it, but when they started to get taught a little wrong in school, they were told that common law is case law, meaning a body of law that comes from the decisions of judges. When in actuality, that's not actually what common law is. It's just what we're told common law is. So sometimes I think that we have disagreements about what certain things are because the foundational principles that were taught to us may have been taught wrong. Now, the people could have been taught wrong, or the attorneys could have been taught wrong, or both. But I believe when we really seek truth and we really look deep into it, we find that before the judiciary, or the judiciary is preceded by law and constitutions. And constitutions are the fundamental law. So constitutions come first. We allow the legislature to make law pursuant to the Constitution. And the only thing that judges do is they make determinations based on what the people wrote. They say that's unconstitutional only because the Constitution is the standard. The Constitution was written by the people, so it's not case law. It's just confirming the law of the people or the law of the statute. That's what the judges do. But a lot of times attorneys have been taught that that what the judges put out with their judgments are what's called case law. Would you agree with that, or do you think that sounds kind of far off?
Well, you have common law, which is they use common law when when the legislature doesn't specify something. So if you can't find your answer within a written law coming from Congress or whatever, then you go by the case law, because where else would you look?
Well, let me ask you a question on that then, because that's deep again. So you say, where else would you look? So here's the deal. So if you have to look in what's called the case law, if the legislature didn't write anything, then what would happen during the first case on a subject? Where would you get the law from to be able to tell if something is right or wrong if no judge ever judged it?
It's the first time it's ever being adjudicated, then that judge would create the precedent.
Okay, so where would he get his ability to make a decision? Because a judge is granted authority by the people to have an office or a seat, and he has to make judgments based on the law. So if you say that the legislature is the one that produces the original law, then if the legislature didn't write anything, he wouldn't have anything to judge off of, except for if there was something else before that that actually is law too, and a higher law.
So you're asking me what the first judge ever, how did he form his opinion when there was no law?
The maxims tell us that the constitutions and the law precedes the judiciary, meaning when the people put together their constitutions, that makes the fundamental law, which is the highest, and then the statutory law made by the legislature is made in pursuance to the constitutions. That's why anytime a statute is found to be invalid, they say is unconstitutional because the higher standard kills the lower level work of the legislature. So the people who create the legislature have a law that is the fundamental law. And then the lower level law is the statutory law, which is made to handle the people's affairs. So when a judge makes a decision based on the common law, he uses what is called the historical usages or customs of the people, or the common law, which is the law of the people and what the constitutions are created from. So for instance, like in the Bruen case recently, when the judge was asked if the ATF rules are to be used or under the historical basis test, can there be statutes made in order to stop the people from having ghost guns, guns with no serial numbers and the such? And the court said, yeah, this Chevron doctrine was wrong the whole time. We have to go back to the historical basis, and I couldn't find anywhere where the legislature ever had the power to tell the people what to do with their property. So therefore, I have to slap all this stuff down, and now the ATF and the attorneys are going crazy because they don't understand how the judge is not honoring Chevron doctrine. But it's because the person who brought the case actually came out and said, we have to use common law, the historical usages, not the statutory stuff that's new. And the judge agreed.
So you do use case law in some cases?
There's no such thing as case law. There's opinions of judges who confirm the common law or historical usages.
Okay, so you do use case opinions sometimes.
Well, actually, what I do is I look at what the people say. I give credence to what the people say before cases. Because if you have to wait on a judge to confirm, the people are just regular, everyday people who are moving around living like me and you.
So what if you and I disagree on what the law is? Then how do you decide?
Super easy.
What the law is?
The way you decide what the law is you bring a case before a jury, which is the people too. And the people get to decide if the law you're bringing before the court is legitimate or not. So for instance, in a civil case, you can have a jury and the jury can decide if you broke some law, and it doesn't have to just be written. You could have done something to somebody and caused somebody harm and it's not in a statute, and they can hold you accountable. If you go before go ahead.
So the Supreme Court has no jury, right? So does that mean you don't follow anything that the Supreme Court says?
Well, the Supreme Court only follows what the people say. So if you look at every case that the Supreme Court has that they say something is unconstitutional, is because they're basing it on the Constitution, which was written by the people. The Supreme Court didn't create itself. The legislature didn't create itself, and the executive didn't create itself. The people created all three.
So a Supreme Court opinion is that representative of the people?
Yeah, the duty of a judge is to say what the law is. The law is that he's using is the law of the people, which created his seat and created the whole government.
So you will use Supreme Court case opinions as precedent?
No. When you say precedent, is like you're saying that the judge came up with something that was first. If the people wrote it first, the judge isn't first. He's only giving a confirmation or reaffirming something that was already there.
Precedent is what the current law is. What the Supreme Court says is the current law. That's the precedent. It creates the precedent.
No, not necessarily, because the maxims tell us that we shouldn't bring into precedent things that are not in line with common law. So right now we have attorneys who try to bring cases under a statute or under some type of something not written by a legislature or rule. And when they do that, they like to call it precedents and talk about case law to deceive people so that they don't realize that you can't bring administrative things into precedent for the common law. So the attorneys actually changed the definition of common law so that they can make statutory cases against the people that's not lawful. I know that probably sounds crazy, but I back up everything
right.
I say.
So let me give an example. So you
Mm-hmm.
say that if you join a PMA, right?
Yes, sir.
This
Mm-hmm.
this will take you out of the jurisdiction of the courts. As
Well, let
long
me
as
let me help you on that first, because when you start there, so a lot of times when I talk to attorneys, they have a belief already in their mind of what's first, second, and third. Like, for instance, when we talked about case law, I told you that the law comes from the people's mouth first, then they come from legislatures and pursuants, and then the judges make a determination off of that. And that is what they put out as opinions. But attorneys have been taught that that's case law, and it creates like a new law or precedence. It's not really a precedence when the people already said it. It's just confirmation. So when you say, if somebody joins a PMA, private membership association, for those who are watching, does that take you out of the jurisdiction of the court? So biblically, God tells me not to answer a question that has folly in it, but to answer it according to the folly, or correct the folly first, and then once I do that, deal with the question, right? So your your question dealt with a person joining a PMA and getting out of government jurisdiction. Now, you have a presumption that is wrong on its face when you ask that question, and I'm going to tell you what it is. When you say, can a person be added to a PMA to get out of the government jurisdiction, you first have to establish what the government has jurisdiction over. So why would you assume that one of the people are under the jurisdiction of the government already?
So you're saying we're not under the jurisdiction of the government.
So based on the way that America is created, we have what's called a republic. Are you familiar with the definition or what exactly a republic is?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't
so
know. I don't really want to talk about the definition of words. I just want to know what your
definitions are important to make points, because definitions make up words.
Common law, obviously we disagree on the definition of common law. We disagree on the definition of jurisdiction.
So we disagree on the definition of common law. So can we open up the book and see what common law means for the people, to see if I'm lying? Because I don't like to lie to the people. I like to prove everything I say. So can we open up the law and see what the word common law means, and then we can see if I told the people the truth, or if I said something that was kind of unfair?
And this is what, Black's Law Dictionary?
Yes, that's what you guys use in the courts and you use in schools, right?
No.
You don't use Black's Law in law school? It's funny you knew the name Black's Law.
Yeah, that's because everyone who sells PMAs like quote Black's Law Dictionary.
So did I write the Black's Law Dictionary, or did a lawyer write it?
I have no idea.
Okay. So does the law profession use Black's Law and sell it in the schools, or am I mistaken about that?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So Professor Clements, who goes on Hannity, came on the show and said, David, I use that in my classes. There's probably 100 people on this chat right now who can say that they heard him say that, and we know that the courts use it. So are you telling me that the Black's Law Dictionary isn't valid? Because it's selling in stores. So is it a fraud?
What's the definition? What is the definition? No, I didn't say it's fraud. I have no idea what it says. I don't use Black's Law.
Okay, you don't use Black's Law. So I'm just using a resource to let the people see what is said. So if we look here, it's gonna split your screen off for a second, but I'm gonna show the people and then I'll bring you right back. So right here, it says common law, right? As distinguished from the enactment of legislatures, the common law comprises the body of those principles and rules of action relating to the government and security of persons and property, which derive their authority solely from usages and customs of immemorial antiquity, which I told you, usages, historical basis, or from, let me get you the other part, sorry. Let me see if I can get that other one in there. Give me 1 second. Oh, okay. We are going to share the second part. All right, here we go. Or from, oops, sorry, wrong one. Please forgive me. Sorry, I'm trying to work a new system. Okay. Shucks. Hold on. I made it too small now. Give me 1 second. It says, or from the judgments and decrees of the courts recognizing, affirming, and enforcing such usages and customs. And in this sense, particularly the ancient unwritten laws of England. Now, in the laws of England, it says the common law is all the statutory and case law background of England and American colonies before the American Revolution. So the common law does not come from the courts. It comes from them affirming, confirming, or reaffirming what was already said by the people and their historical customs and usages. So when I say common law,
it comes from the courts reaffirming.
Reaffirming. Like I just told you in the beginning, I said they are confirming or reaffirming.
It's what the courts are saying, what the people say.
Yes, the court's confirming what the people already said, which is exactly what I told you. I said the people tell the law, they make it, they bring their custom.
The courts that tell you what the people say.
No, the people tell you what they say. And when you go to court and have an argument over what the people said, the people confirm, the courts confirm what the people said.
And then the courts are the ones that, release these decisions.
Yeah, we grant them authority in the Constitution to be our servants who confirm what we say. So when somebody comes trying to say something other than what we said, the court say, you know better. The people already said this, and this, and that's how I'm making my ruling. So they're not making their ruling based off of nothing.
So if you were to search for common law, where would you look?
If you were to search, you would look in the trust indenture, and you would look in the history of what it is that the people have held as law in that society.
And is that not in court opinion?
No. It can end up in court opinion if they made decisions about it, but when you look at states come together and nations come together by the will of the people and what they expressly write in their constitution. So the judge, when he tells what is constitutional, he's basing things off of what we expressly write in the Constitution.
Okay, so why do you look at Supreme Court case opinions?
Why do I look at them? Well, I don't put them as very high, actually. I understand that before any Supreme Court case happens, one of the people have to be smart enough to say, hey, wait, we already put that in the law that this ain't right. So I'm going to fight this and stand up on my rights, which I already have, which the government swore to in the federal and state constitutions, so that I can get justice. Because these people who are coming against me don't understand the law and my rights, and I'm not going to have it. That's no court case goes to court and gets to the Supreme Court unless somebody fights and says it's wrong first.
Is the right to associate, is that in the Constitution?
In which Constitution?
The United States Constitution.
Well, that's not, the United States Constitution is not the first, and it's not where most of the people's rights are. So you have what's called freedom of assembly. Go ahead.
So you're saying that there's another constitution out there that trumps the U.S. Constitution?
In many areas, yes, because the United States Constitution is very limited in scope. We only gave the federal government under 20 things to have power over. That's all we granted them. But in the state
So,
constitutions, we have many rights that are not in the federal.
so if there's something in the U.S. Constitution that contradicts an old Constitution, then
Old
which one
Constitution.
would you
Explain to
put?
me what you mean so I can understand. I'm sorry. Can you hear me still? Did we break up?
Sorry, my phone is overheating. 1 second.
Uh-oh. Hey, and for those who are watching, can somebody share this on Twitter? I think his phone may have messed up. I will add him back in. We were getting into a good conversation. It's pretty cool he came on. I always have fun talking to attorneys and brilliant people who have spent their time studying and training. And it's a tough thing to do to even get on live and talk before people live. So I thank him for coming. It's a blessing to be able to have this beautiful discussion in front of the people. Uh-oh. Yeah, we lost him. Shucks. All right, so I guess I'll talk for a little bit, guys, since I lost him. But guys, I want you to definitely see that definitions are very important. If we don't have meanings and understanding of words, words make up sentences, sentences make up statutes and constitutions and laws. And if we don't have an understanding of the words that we are saying, then we can never truly stand on the law and be free. We have to be able to break down those words and phrases and provisions in the constitutions in order to be able to truly stand on law and use the power that God has given us to be able to stand. I believe that the law is simple. I believe that the law is plain. I believe that if we, the people, start to study and really pick up the book and do the homework, I believe that there is nobody in America that can stand before us as we speak the truth. And I'm thankful for any man that comes or woman. It's very difficult to get attorneys to come on, or government officials to come on and really talk about the law peacefully in love. But it's beautiful for the people to see what's real. This is real life stuff. This isn't scripted. I don't get to prepare before somebody comes at me with questions in the law. I don't get to know what they know. I don't look them up. You know, it doesn't matter to me. I believe the law is that simple that you can take anybody and have a discussion at any given time if you understand the fundamental principles at any time, right? So, you know, if you are watching, please share this out. If you are on Rumble, please get this out there. Please share it on Twitter. Please share it on Facebook, FaceCrook, the people who took my account back in the day where I had 5,000 plus subscribers, and they took my stuff. But Alan Davis, thank you so much. I see the gift for $1. That is huge. For many years, I did thousands of hours worth of teaching, and I never, ever, ever let people give me money. They'll say, Dave, what's your Cash App? And I'll just ignore them. Now, there was a person before Alan that gave $50. I want to thank you. I don't usually let people just give me anything, but I'm thankful. Is that Alan again? Giving? Okay, Alan, you tripping now. Alan just gave $75. Gosh darn it, Alan. Gosh darn it. You know, $1 is great. Like, you didn't have to do that. I'm humbly thankful. Like I said, I wouldn't let people give me anything when I help people fight against bad actors and the government taking over their family members. And I tried to make sure everybody had what they need, went through a lot of hell, stress, and struggle. I stopped my businesses because I made a name for myself teaching the law and helping people win, and they start trying to kill me. Some of you guys seen on my Facebook the picture of my truck. I had a Durango, and 5 of the wheel lugs were loosened and one was left tight, and it came off. I got off the freeway. It was wobbling. I'm like, what the heck is going on? I get off, and I got off the freeway and pulled up in a QT, and the dang wheel was just like fell off, and it was like exploded. I'm like, no, right? So I had to get home. A guy dropped me off who worked at the gas station, who I ended up becoming friends with. It was amazing. Well, I was happy with the dollar, Alan. Like, you didn't have to do all that, man. Like, but it's huge to see the blessings that people give. I believe that so many people have won in our midst, you know, and done so many amazing things that I never used to let people help me. But then I remember some of you guys started coming on and saying, Dave, you gotta let us do a little bit, right? And then one of y'all pull the God card on me. You're like, God would want us to be able to help, so you better let us do it. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna argue with that. So let me get this picture off and bring him back on. He made it back. His phone was overheating. We switched sides now. Let me see if I can switch sides with him. Get back. Oh, okay, here we go. I'm going to share him back on the screen. Let's see, Phil. Hey, Phil, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so your phone overheated a little bit, huh?
Yeah. A lot of
oh, you're in Arizona too.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't even want to talk about the stories of my phone overheating here. I've had my phone sitting out on the table trying to enjoy some sun and ground, and my phones have, you know, you see where it says temperature too high and it's shutting down. I'm like, no, right? Like, is this thing dying? But it could get rough. But yeah, so you were asking me about what? About the common law? Or what was it that you were saying last?
I think what we're talking about.
We were talking about judges who make decisions after make decisions and I was saying what they make decisions based on, and you were asking me something else, I think, or I might have just got finished. But let me ask you this.
I think I asked you.
Oh no, go ahead. No, you can go ahead.
So I'm trying to figure out whether you use Supreme Court case opinions, and it seems like you kind of use them, but
well, no. I will tell people how the Supreme Court uses the law and applies it correctly, right? Because there's some Supreme Court decisions that are administrative stuff that doesn't matter because it has nothing to do with the people's rights. I don't care. If somebody says, can the ATF make a pistol brace rule for cops? I don't give a freak. Why did that matter to me? I'm not a cop, right? When the Supreme Court deals with the decision about the people's rights, then that's when I care, because it's their job to protect the people's rights. What happens in government business has nothing to do with me. I don't give a freak, right? It's what they do in their everyday business. But when they make a decision about things that have to deal with law, I like to address it. And sometimes when the Supreme Court is getting ready to make a decision based on something that looks like it can affect the people's rights, I like to get thousands of people and put them on notice and say, hey, we know that the historical customs and usage, the common law says this. So we know that you're getting ready to make a decision. I hope you don't make the decision and make a mistake and let ATF think that they can do this wrong to people. And that's actually one of the duties of the people in every state, is to instruct our servants. And I think a lot of times things get out of line and out of whack because government officials don't have anybody instructing them except for attorneys. Because think about it. You said yourself that the lockdown stuff was unconstitutional. But then we would have to ask, in every single state, in every single legislature, in every single executive branch, in every single police station, don't they have a legal department or lawyers telling them what they can do and what they can't do?
Well, obviously the government's super corrupt. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, but But they're making their decisions based off of lawyers giving them advice, right? They're not making decisions on their own, right? Somebody's telling them what they can do. Before they lock down the whole state, they go and say, I mean, here's what happened in 2020. They said, we have to lock down the state, and then we're going to ask the courts to give us guidance to let us know if it was okay or not. So apparently the government officials aren't smart enough to know on their own what's constitutional and what's not. And then they're asking somebody, and somebody's telling them it's okay. We can bring people to court. We can take people's stuff. We can lock people down. We can stop people from seeing their loved ones. And they're making these decisions based off of a lawyer that tells them it's okay. And so somebody who's law trained isn't telling them correctly.
So are you familiar with NAACP versus Alabama?
Yes.
And do you agree with that?
With what? With which part?
Which part of the opinion?
Yeah, like which part? Like what thing are you talking about? So first of all, everybody here don't understand what you're talking about. And I don't know exactly what you're asking. So I'm just asking so everybody hears and knows.
NAACP versus Alabama. And it involved the government wanted, or the state wanted to force the NAACP to produce a list of their members.
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
NAACP refused.
Can you say that a little bit louder? Or let me see if I can turn you up. Can you get louder by any chance? So everybody.
I don't think so. I'll just talk. I'll speak.
Oh, okay, that's better. That's better. Can everybody hear him? Let me know if y'all can hear him, please. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Right. NAACP versus Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first cases that the Supreme Court started to talk about the freedom of association. And in that case, the state of Alabama wanted to force the NAACP to produce a list of their members. And NAACP refused because they said if they produce this list, it might invite retaliation against their members.
Wait, so the NAACP refused to do it?
Refused to give them the list. Yes.
And you said this is one of the first cases like this?
It's one of the first cases where the Supreme Court started to define explicitly how our right of association works.
So how did the NAACP know they had this right to not be intruded by the government if it was one of the first cases? Just so everybody can hear and so we can know.
No, the reason. Okay, let me explain a little bit of history. So there was a Civil War, right? That was in the 1860s. And then after the Civil War, they abolished slavery. And then in, I think, the late 1860s, that's when they created the 14th Amendment to protect the rights of the freed slaves.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's called the Equal
Protection
Law.
Wait. So you're saying the 14th Amendment is what protected the rights, or would it be the 1866 Civil Rights Act?
Well,
like two years before.
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what Civil Rights Act says.
So 14th Amendment was 1868.
Yeah.
Civil Rights Act was 1866, 2 years before, where they said that people of color would have the same rights as white people in America. So it was 2 years before.
The 14th Amendment applies to the states, because if you read it, it says no state shall infringe upon. It's basically the First Amendment, but they're applying it to the states. They want to make sure that the states also respect the rights of the freed slaves.
I understand they do that too, but so before even the 14th Amendment or the First Amendment, was there anything that was written that said that everybody had equal rights in every state, and was there a right to privacy and prevention from?
I'm sure there was.
Or what about a right to not have government intrude into your private life? Was that one a fundamental law? Before?
There's a right to privacy.
Okay, was there a right for the government not to intrude into your private affairs?
You're talking about the U.S. Constitution?
Well, the U.S. Constitution is not the only constitution that the United States government agreed to. So you have states, right? So there was 13 colonies, right? And then they became states, and then they created the United States government, right? So the states created the United States government to make a more perfect union. But the states...
Do you disagree? I'm talking about the 14th Amendment. Do you disagree that it was created to protect the rights of the free slaves?
I don't really think that's what it was created for. That might be what it was sold as, but when it comes to the 1866 Civil Rights Act, that was already there 2 years before to cover that. So when you get to the 14th Amendment, you can say that that's what it's for, but I believe that some of the language in the 14th Amendment actually says some things that that really kind of interfere with the rights that the United States government already swore to in the state constitutions.
So then in the early 1900s, the NAACP was formed, and it's an association to fight against racial segregation, because even though...
You said an association though, right?
Association, organization, whatever you want to call it.
But it's not part...
Getting together.
Just so everybody understands, it's not part of government though, right?
No, not a part of government.
So it's not the public sector, it's something else?
It's a group of people getting together.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So, and the reason why they created the NAACP was because even though we had the Civil Rights Act, we had the 14th Amendment, there was still a lot of racism and segregation happening. Right? So that's why the NAACP was formed, to fight against racial segregation. That's their purpose.
So wait, now let me ask you this just so I know for sure. So you're telling me in the 1900s, right, there was a case that dealt with black people who came together in order to be able to...
I didn't say there was a case. The NAACP was formed.
No, you said the case was NAACP versus Alabama. I thought that's what you said earlier.
Yeah, that's later. But I'm just saying the NAACP was formed to fight against racial segregation.
Okay, so there's a group of people, which is what you just said, came together. They already had rights based on the 1866 Civil Rights Act, and they already had rights based on the 14th Amendment, but for some reason they felt they needed to come together and protect their rights as a group of people, as an association. Is that what you're saying? That's what they did? Is that correct with history?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay, was there any purpose in that, or did it accomplish anything?
The purpose was to fight racial segregation.
Gotcha. So when they came together to fight racial issues as a group of people, was it a benefit to that as an association? Because it's the National Association of Colored People. When they came together, was there a benefit to them coming together, and did it bring forth fruit for them by coming together?
Well, we have more equal rights now, right? I mean, there's less segregation, right?
So then you're telling me that you believe in the idea of a group of people who are impoverished or being attacked by the government or not getting fair treatment, because a lot of people who look like me were getting hung back then, and having all types of bad stuff happen. Even black people, Negroes in the 1950s, who really were looked at as the scum of the earth in Alabama, a racist state where they hung people a lot. When you come together as a group of people, as an association, there's a benefit to it where you could actually get justice, possibly?
Well, it's easier than doing it alone.
That is so true. That's what I tell everybody. See, the power of association is the fact that when you come saying that you have a grievance with one person, you might get hung. But when you come with 50, 100, 1,000, you start to build numbers, you usually get a lot more justice, because when you do wrong against 100 or 1,000 or 2,000 people, What ends up happening is that the governments, which are political, look really bad when they punish a lot of people, and it's a common occurrence. But I'm happy you made that point. But go ahead, continue. Ask me about the case, and then we can deal with what you got for me.
So they formed this association, and the government officials, employees are still very racist. So they're constantly trying to interfere with the activities of the NAACP.
Okay, so the actual government, the state government, is trying to interfere with the business of the people.
Of the NAACP.
Of the association. So yes. The association, before there was other cases like this, because this is one of the first, you're saying the association came together and went against the jurisdiction of the government of the state before the Supreme Court made a decision.
I didn't say jurisdiction. I said the NAACP is fighting segregation, doing whatever they can to fight segregation, and the state of Alabama and other governments are interfering with their activities because they're basically racist.
But you said they asked for their membership list. So when you have an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, it's in the statutes of every state that the government has the right to call in and check your books. They have a power over the entities they create. That's in the state statutes across the country. And they can actually change the rules for LLCs, S Corp, C Corps, and government-created associations like 501s, 508s. That's why 508s and 501s can't be political and talk about who they want to bring in as government politicians and the such. And churches can't talk about who they want to pick and what bad things the government is doing. They can't do it because they're created by the government and under their jurisdiction. So when you said they wanted their membership list, that kind of it kind of triggered me because that's what you do when you have jurisdiction over somebody. Like, for instance, in Arizona, when we got the audit and the full forensic audit, I went to the legislature and said, hey, write a subpoena, tell the Board of Supervisors to give you the ballots. You have jurisdiction over them. Take it. And then they did a subpoena and they got the ballots. So jurisdiction is going to be the granted authority to take, to control another entity. So that's why I said that. But I guess that's neither here nor there.
All right. So they're in